Mr. Daniel Bwala, the spokesperson, PDP Presidential Campaign Council. We're so delighted that we can have this discussion with you again. But first of all, I'm just really curious though. Why the hat?
Well, when we started this campaign trail, there was one time a friend of mine gave me one of these hats and I wore it. I wore the hat and I had one interview like that. And a lot of people, commented on it. In fact, somebody said, you look more like a Niger Delta. Then I said, okay, then that means if I keep wearing this, people in the Niger Delta
will resonate with you.
Say, yeah. And I've come to like it a lot.
Because people will easily maybe conclude on your cowboy hat, saying that maybe the cowboy has come to town to roost.
Maybe that's what it means.
Well, we shall see how it goes though. But how has the campaigns been? I mean, this is just 2 weeks to brace the tape.
Right.
How has it been?
So I would say so far so good. In my own assessment, I think we have gone way beyond our initial projection, because when we started, we thought that because there were these grievances in the party, if you recall, when some governors felt very uncomfortable that one of them was not picked as a vice presidential candidate, and people were picking issues here and there. Then the media people, of course, bought into it and they made it an issue, as though we didn't even have any manifesto in existence. So at the beginning, you might think that, okay, this is going to be a problem. But what we did was we focused on the issues, and the issues were outlined in our manifesto. And we just came to this conclusion that ultimately is the voters. And the voters' decision will be guided by so many factors, not just grievances in the party. After all, grievances in the parties are inter-party issues. But the people we're looking to convince, going into the election, are the Nigerian people. Our Nigerian population is about 200 million. Registered voters are about 90 million or thereabout. So we now focus on the issues. And not long after that, we realized that initial agitation was never an issue. And we knew once you took that out of the way, there is no contest. Because two things are there. Number one, you have the governing party. Have they made out a case to warrant the vote of the Nigerian people? And I think the Nigerian people are at Eden, on this fact that they have failed Nigerians even in their own standards, not to talk about the standards the Nigerian people have set for themselves. So then we look at the next rival. The next rival is the Labour Party and Peter Obi. Has Peter Obi made out a case, or can he make a case more stronger and convincing than our candidate? And the answer we concluded was in the affirmative, because one, in this election, people are going to look at issues and they're going to look at the character and fitness and preparedness and the experience of those who are vying for that office. So what we did was we placed them on the same pedestal. We picked experience. Atiku is way ahead of him. We picked history. Atiku has more history, than him. Because, for example, Atiku's lifestyle, history, business, philosophy reflects what the Nigerian people need. As a private sector player, Atiku has created jobs, created opportunities for young people, has established schools where he gave scholarships to the Nigerian people, thereby exposing them to the real issues of life that has now created more opportunities for them. Some have gone to Harvard, have come back contributing to the system. So then we look at employment. Atiku has recruited people in the various companies that he has established over the years. Then we look at self-development, or creating opportunities in the area of governance. We look around the country and see how Atiku has applied his philosophy of governance from the nationalistic or national point of view. So there is every part of this country you go to, you must find stakeholders in the communities or demography that would tell you that Atiku is a mentor. He has impacted their lives, or in the past has even created opportunities for them, which also impacted on their community. These things we've mentioned, Peter Obi does not have that. And they are fundamental issues.
Are you sure? Because Peter Obi will always remind you that he handled Anambra State exceptionally well. Lagos State was also exceptionally well handled by Bwala TINUBU. So when you make those references, it seems to suggest that as much as you make them, you can have a replication for your opposition parties, the APC, Labour Party, for instance. How do you respond to that?
So look, this is how I look at it. Now let's start with the Anambra. He handled Anambra, but he has been there for 8 years. If you go to Awka, the capital of Anambra, you will wonder it's a glorified slump. There is no infrastructure anywhere. By the time he finished, he said he kept money. In other words, he did not mismanage the resources of the people. Globally, if you look at the concept of governance, they talk about infrastructure as the first thing anybody who has governance understanding will invest in. Then we now probe further and discover that what he was actually doing by the money he purportedly said he was keeping was to leave the money in the bank to which he was a chairman. Because you can do your investigative journalist investigation, you would see that the monies were in Fidelity Bank. He was chairman at the time, right? In Fidelity Bank. And you know, of course, the concept, the more money you bring to the bank, the more profits you make. Arguably, the profits that accrued to him during this period were far more than those things he said he sacrificed. Because he would tell you, when I finished, I didn't confer upon myself the benefit of pension or anything. They were nothing compared to what he made out in that business. So infrastructure-wise, bad. Security-wise, during his period, you saw the violation of human rights in Anambra. And that was very, very bad, right? So if you look at Anambra, is Anambra a good place to go and do business now? Certainly no. Is it a good place in terms of infrastructure? Certainly no. Then you move to Lagos. We have established that, I think I've had an interview with you, that when you look at Lagos, if you want to assess whether TINUBU actually worked in Lagos, you have to compartmentalize issues. So you close your mind and divide Lagos into private and public service. So if you look at the private side of Lagos, the entire development that you see in the private sector in Lagos were never engineered, promoted, or instigated by Asiwaju. Rather, if you engage with the private sector players, they will tell you he has actually extorted them in different areas, like percentage you give. If you're acquiring land, certain portion has to go to him. So if you look at Lagos, you should be able to look at the public sector. They talk about 51 billion as IGR that is generated in Lagos every month. But up till now, as I speak to you, people give birth in Kenu, in the slum areas. And the Lagos that people look at are the Lagos that Asiwaju actually abandoned. There are about 7 to 8 local governments.
Abandoned? Wouldn't that be too much stronger word?
So the use of the word abandon is that as a governor, you had the resources of the state, and you are to deploy those resources in every part. That's why when you are a president, they say you are the president of the Federal Republic. You must not treat one side better than the other. So what did he do in Ajegule, in Mushin, in Yanapaja? You see, all these places that I'm mentioning to you, he has, in the 8 years he stayed, there was practically nothing in terms of either infrastructure road or in terms of creating opportunities for the people. So that is a counter argument we can always give to the narrative that he built Lagos or that he did something. Rather, let me tell you those things you can point at and say he did, that when he replicates that to the country, it will be devastating. And these are things that are not, you cannot argue them. One, there is a company called Alpha Beta. That company is owned by him. He can't deny that. The MD, the former MD of Alpha Beta, I think some years back, sent a petition to EFCC where these facts came to fore, that he owned it, he got people to front it, right? Alpha Beta took over the management of revenue collection in Lagos, right? And that Alpha Beta, owned by him, generated revenue to that extent. There are people who have argued that they are underreporting, but leave it by the side. If Alpha Beta, as a company owned by him, collect the revenue of Lagos, or collect the revenue of Lagos where they get percentage, when he becomes president, because he said it by himself, he will replicate Lagos. That means Alpha Beta will take over FIRS. Now, they also said, alleged, that his wife supplied diesel to all government infrastructures in Lagos. So that means when he becomes president, the first lady is going to take over certain private investment that relates to that. The son, billboard. The daughter is the Iyalopa. There is this concept in Yoruba where she's like management. Iyaloja of Lagos, right? You have one of his cousins or brothers or relation who owns an oil company. And in fact, most recently, they brokered a deal with NNPC where his own company, Owando, was sold. So if you look at those things he did, those dynastic, approaches to governance, it means when he becomes president, the entire economy of Nigeria will be owned by his dynasty. So that is what you can say he will try to replicate. And these things are dangerous. So let's go to Atiku. Atiku became governor, just like TINUBU in 1999. He won election as governor. But because of his capacity to win, he was taken as a vice presidential candidate. to Obasanjo. And of course, you know, Atiku being the leader of the PDM, then you know the kind of cross-border influence that he had. He deployed that, they won the election. He became the manager of the economy because he was the chairman of the Economic Council. And you remember when they took over in 1999, it was then after the military Igdaregno. You couldn't travel out of the country. Your passport was not respected anywhere in the country. So many sanctions on Nigeria in terms of external debt and all of that. He had hunted, you know, so that's the capacity he has over them. And by the time we came to 2003, Nigeria was already on the right path. When they finished in 2007, it was obvious. So in terms of experience, Atiku has more than just a governance experience over them. He has a national experience because these two governors govern a part of a state where the legislative branch and the judiciary was almost at their beck and call. If you bring them to the national as a president, they are yet going to understand that the way democracy works at the national, there is independence of the legislature and the judiciary. So he's way ahead of them. And this is where, so we started making our case to the Nigerian people, and then events start unfolding. Then as events unfold, you now see Asiwaju expose himself to the Nigerian people as one that may not have the mental stability required to lead. By himself, I'm not talking about people accusing him, you have so much of gaps. Then you see he became the person who could even mention his other colleagues who are vying for office and use all kinds of words against them. You see threats. He was in London where he said, you win election by all means. It's not served like a la carte. They all displayed their tendencies.
But when tantrums like that are thrown, I mean, it's a blanket situation because your party as well as Labour Party is doing the same.
So I would ask you to give me one example in the whole of this campaign where Atiku mentioned any of the candidates. He never. As a matter of fact, I will even give the credit to Peter Obi. He too, he would only give instances, but he would not mention. These people dignified themselves. TINUBU disqualified himself by that. And he has divided Nigeria across religious lines, across ethnic lines, across different lines. Now, lately, he now took up a war against the government. They have not been able to communicate to the Nigerian people an understanding of the party and themselves. If you go to election, you won't see his name. On the election day, you will see APC, you won't see TINUBU. And they want to run away from the APC that brought bad governance to Nigeria for 8 years. So they do not qualify to be voted. That leaves us with Labour. Does he have the experience? He does not, obviously. You can see him going from one church to the other, playing identity politics. When you become president, you become the president of everybody. Now, let me tell you a bit about Peter Obi.
But he's just trying to get votes.
So in trying to get vote, you must be guided by character, because one of the things he prides on in his campaign is that he has character. You would have heard his followers saying he has character. Character goes beyond identity politics. Character is appreciation of facts and applying principles that last beyond rhetoric, beyond other considerations that do not help in national unity. So when you become president, you are a president of the country. He goes from one church to another. But let me tell you, does Peter Obi protect even the right of the Christians? All you need is to travel back to Anambra. He played identity politics where he divided the Catholics and the Anglicans. All you did is when you go to Anambra, ask the Anglicans, is Peter Obi a unifier? They will tell you definitely he's not. So some of the Pentecostal leaders and churches that are rallying around him need to understand what he even did to Pentecostal churches in Anambra State. He's not a unifier. Such a person, when he becomes a president, will prefer one religion over the other. That's not what we need at this time of suspicion, at this time of various problems in the country.
But Dan, I think that the PDP should be scared out of its wits today, judging from the kind of mammoth crowd that you see Peter Obi pulling. The youth seem to be calling Peter Obi every now and then. His last outing in Lagos was just awesomely brilliant. Everybody was just on the street following him. Just those chants of Peter Obi, how do they even now say it?
Obi KK.
It has become very famous now.
Yeah.
Aren't you scared?
No, let me tell you why. One, the identity or the attributes of somebody who is revolutionary is that the belief on him and the push for his ascendancy to power is broad-based. It is not going to be led by one tribe over the other. Look at his movement in Lagos. Look at what happened in Lagos. First of all, we have seen the drone pictures that expose the fact that what they manipulated as crowd in Lagos was actually not the issue. All the stands were empty. It is the field. The field also can be divided into 4. He filled 1.5. That does not qualify as crowd pulling, especially if you juxtapose that with other candidates. 1. 2, some people said, because the other political parties and the candidate, they sponsor people, they pay people to be there. I believe you would have seen, because it's reported, in Ogun, one of the problems that led to the sack of Doyin Okupe was the fact of money. He released money and then some people mismanaged it. You also saw in Jos, there was a protest in front of their campaign office because money was given to mobilize. In Potiskum, a reverend was given 4 million and he took the money and started building his house somewhere. And one of them now exposed it. So Peter Obi gives money to mobilize. So he shouldn't be seen or be separated as one who does not. And basically what most political parties do is they provide money to transport the people to the stadium. In Nigeria, the way poverty is weaponized, even churches, when you do crusade, you have to make transportation available to bring people. So some people overblow certain things. That's one. So Peter Obi is like every other one. Now, put all his rallies in Nigeria so far, put them all together, not up to the rally we had in Katsina. Now, there is no greater polling in Africa than the polling you see in rallies. All these computer-generated and computer-manipulated pollings that you see from different companies and organizations were actually bought and manipulated. I was in London where I was approached by a polling company, one of the renowned polling companies in the world. And they told me if I wanted them to poll for us, all we do is we identify what we exactly wanted, and they will run the system to bring out our objective. So who will deceive who? That's why we look at the sample size and the margin of error. And then we look at the demographics that you claim you poll.
I try to say that you do not trust Peter Obi's polls.
Everybody knows it's a 419 poll. Okay, let me give you an example. You say Peter Obi is leading in the Northwest and Southwest. That means mental health issues is real. Peter Obi is leading in the Northwest and in the Southwest. I mean, the reason why lately they started projecting that is because it is apparent when he started all these things, they will say he's leading here, he's leading here. And they know that you cannot win this country if you don't have more than 50% of the vote from the Northwest.
25%.
No.
In 24 states of the country.
Right. But for you to be able to have the majority, you have to look at numbers, right? Assuming Peter Obi has 25%, he has 25 in 24 states. Now, that's base one. You need them to score the highest lawful majority vote. Look at the voting population of the Northwest. So this 2023 election is going to be decided by the Northwest. Whoever wins the Northwest wins the election. So they now manipulated the polling to now suggest that he's leading in the Northwest. Madness is real.
What optics do you see, though, or permutation, if you will?
This is what
when you look at Labour Party and the kind of mass movement it seems to be generating, the traction it's generating at the moment, and then the PDP, your party. 3
things. 1, looking at Labour, 1 point is that Peter Obi is not revolutionary enough. He cashed in on a movement of young people. This movement of young people, when they started, were not particular about any person. They just wanted a different path in Nigeria. And Peter Obi cashed into it. So when your revolutionary concept is not organic, there's a limit to which you can go. Point number 1. Point number 2, optics and narrative. Those who were pushing Peter Obi knew that they were projecting a third-term agenda of somebody in the country. And all you need to do, look at his various endorsements. Those individuals worked under somebody who sought for third time but never got in the country. Then second part of the second point, then they now began the manipulation of polling because their target audience is the Western world. So in order to convince, because in most countries of the world, the Western world, they guide their projections by polling. So they feel if we can manipulate the polling, we will convince them he's popular to achieve 2 things: funding from international donors and communities, because that's what companies do. And then number 2, perception, so that when he loses the election in 2023, he would say he won and his mandate was stolen. Then this Western media will begin to push for him. So these people who run the pollings for him, that is their target. But in terms of being on ground, they know he does not stand a chance. The good thing for us, and as I will come back to our party, is that these international observers came to Nigeria 2 to 3 months earlier than the time they normally come. So whatever you think your polling is able to do outside, these people have first-hand observation and experience of what is happening, who is popular, who is trending, and who is moving. Now, Peter Obi's social media trends comes from one fact. We did internal assessment, and we run algorithm checks, and we discovered that 57.5% of people who generate this trend for him on social media, they live abroad. So that means most of them will not come to vote, right? Those ones, they live in climes where internets are real. You know, if you meet an average Nigerian now, you send him videos, he will look at his data before he plays it. Over there, everything is internet-based. They manipulate both. Some of the likes you see are not even human beings, they are bots. So on social media, he trends. And because social media is the only platform that the whole world is connected as a one ball, so it is believed as if he is. In Africa, there are dynamics, culture, religion, background, social class, and everything. And if your polling does not reflect this demographic, you're wasting your time, and we know it. Now, come to PDP. Atiku, in the Northwest, that's how I know we're winning. Buhari won the Northwest when Atiku came second. The entire Northwest, Buhari won. Now, the entire Northwest are not doing APC. Entire Northwest, and I say that because when they organize their own meetings, lately, because we expose it, they don't shout Nigeria again. They will shout Nigeria. A greater number of the people in that place will be saying, say Atiku, their own people. And you know, the way the North play their politics, they are very good in politics. They play what in the local language we call shinkafa the waki, rice and beans. When the chips are down, this is how they run their voting. So they are no longer partisan on the basis of political party affiliation. They will now bring a lot of consideration. So in the North, for example, you might find in a given state, for governorship, they will vote an APC candidate. For president, they will vote a PDP candidate. And it's the same in the Southwest. Some people, some of my friends in Oyo, they are telling me that forget the fact that you people are in Oyo, governorship they will do Makinde, but president they will do TINUBU. And if you look at the dynamics of politics, it has gone ethnic. So, and for you to win, you must first take control of at least 60 to 70% of your ethnic enclave.
So they told you that they will do TINUBU for president?
Yes, some of my friends that are from Oyo, even in our party, they say, we will do Makinde. So it has gone ethnic because the leading candidates come from 3 ethnic enclave in Nigeria, right? So for you to win, you must first take charge of your place and negotiate for the other 2. Let me give you the analysis. And it is easy to drive home the message. Let's check out the Northwest. The Afenifere, the Pan-Yoruba organization, have endorsed a candidate other than TINUBU. Then the key leaders in the Southwest, so that Adebanjo, Obasanjo, and the rest, have endorsed a candidate other than Asiwaju. Then you have another candidate that they are endorsing. He's from the southern Nigeria. And if you could break the country into 2, for example, the southern Nigeria tend to all find a melting pot in Lagos and the rest of the southern Nigeria more than in other parts of Nigeria. So in other words, the votes that TINUBU thinks he's going to get in the Southwest will be diminished greatly by this consideration. The Christian communities that felt he went on religious identity politics. And then he has his own kinfolks that have refused to adopt him. So he cannot even win the Southwest that he must win at least 70%. He doesn't have hope in South-South and Southeast historically.
You seem to sound as if it's a lost battle for the APC.
Correct.
But let me remind you that
right.
The APC controls the majority of the states in this country.
So
how do you contend with that?
Simple answer, and I did that a few days ago in a television house. The number of the governors of APC in the North is not a conclusive proof of control. Of course, you must know that most of the governors in the North don't even command the followership of their states. That's why practically nothing is happening in those states. That is case number 1. Number 2, I take you back to 2015. PDP controlled most of the states in the country, but Buhari swept them. Whenever a time of reckoning comes, the voting is not determined by how many governors that sit, or even how many governors are against their party. It is going to be determined by the reaction of the masses on the basis of their assessment of the situation on ground. There is no part of this country you will go to that you will find somebody happy with APC. No part. Even in Lagos, where he comes from. The voting will be, their own voting consideration will not be how many governors are in the north in APC. It's going to be, are we happy? Are we happy about the last 7-8 years? And of course, you must see that in street, in homes, economy, and everywhere. We have never been this badly damaged. So this is one case scenario. The second case scenario is majority of the governors in APC, at least I know of 12, are not doing TINUBU. When I began talking this, they thought it was rhetoric. Are you not seeing it now? To a point where they are even creating suspicion on the own president. Because TINUBU's only hope of winning the election would have been if they rigged the election for him. As a person, he knew he had not garnered the temperament, the experience, the heart. This was somebody who said, I never believe in one Nigeria.
And
how do you expect?
It's the same person who has built his integrity, his person, over the past political years that he spent in politics. So you cannot just take that away from him.
No. He
has the character, according to his party. He has the character, he has the capacity, and he has got the human feelings and is in touch with the Nigerian people to see that he is able to fix Nigeria again.
So I give you a good example. In his party, he has been a party champion. If the Nigerian election were to be a political party affairs, he will be the next president because he has his ways around parties, including, bribing members and the rest. All of his life, he built that kind of politics, party politics. But national politics, TINUBU has not had any experience with any part of Nigeria apart from his enclave, where you will see him as probably saying Bwala or some of these people that were national in their outlook. He has been an ethnic champion. And this time around, he's even bringing it out. You see, most of this is ranting. It's ethnically motivated. Anytime he wants to fight his president or some other persons, he chooses a location and he chooses medium of communication. Everybody knows that. So the person who is growing to learn is peterobi. But the thing is, has he developed that capacity to manage Nigeria? That question has not been answered. We are not even talking about his party where it is so disorganized. People are living everywhere. He doesn't even know and have the contact numbers of people running for various posts across the political party, across his own party. He only cares about his ambition to become president. He went to Rivers and through the governorship candidate to the bush, adopted Governor Wike's candidate. And now Governor Wike abandoned him and is supporting TINUBU. All the places, a friend of mine told me the governorship candidate of a particular state under Labour is his tenant. And he is from another party. And he told him, I have never had any call from peterobi. You can never win election in Nigeria as a lone ranger. You must collaborate.
What happens, Daniel, if peterobi fails to win these elections?
So nothing will happen. We will move on. But some of the misguided people under him and some of the misguided elders who are supporting him are venting threats, fire and brimstone, saying stuff like, if peterobi does not win, forget Nigeria. Do they even know what democracy is? Democracy is guided by election by a popular candidate. A popular candidate, anybody who becomes president in Nigeria today, it is Nigeria that voted him. Because the way it is configured, you can never be president by only your ethnic enclave voting you. That's why it says you must have at least 25% in 24 states of the federation and become majority of the winner. So when you become president, including the ethnic enclave where these people are venting rage and fire and brimstone, voted the person. And so when somebody emerges as the president, he stands under a democratically conducted election, then he becomes the president. All these threats they are giving, of course, we know in Nigeria, after somebody emerges president, there will be pockets of violence here and there. That's why law enforcement are there to suppress that violence, and then we move forward. The good thing is that our candidate, who is poised to win, is a unifier. There is virtually no part of this country where he does not engage with. And he is going to run what he calls a government of national unity. Atiku is going to work with people from APC, people from Labour, people from NNPP, and from different parties. Because what his own understanding of governance, it goes beyond this primordial sentiment. We won, you won. And
if he wins, will he work with Peter Obi?
He will definitely work with Peter Obi. And if TINUBU is open to working with him, he will work with TINUBU. He wants, you see, look at the manifesto. That's all you need to see. And look at his life. Atiku has consistently all his life carried an Igbo person as his vice presidential candidate because he believed that that part of the country need to have a say in governance. Even when it was obviously going to hurt his ambition. That is when we talk about character, that you know this is right, even if it's going to cost you establish that. That's one. Then number two, tell me which part of this country Atiku has not worked with the people who created opportunities for them. And then if you look at the party, the PDP, also Atiku is presidential candidate, but look at the structure holding of the party. They are from the other parts of the country. If you ask an Igbo man, do you have a place in PDP? He will say, now us, they run PDP. If you ask a Yoruba man, he will say, now us. This PDP produced a Southwest president who governed for 8 years. This PDP party produced a South-South president who governed for 4 years, plus the other 2 years of the Northern candidate. This PDP. In APC, the only record they have is the record of a Northern candidate or Northern president who is finishing the 8 years. And they are all breaking. That's the crisis in their party. They are breaking back. You know the way Voltron, they come together into one common force. They are now breaking back into their legacy parties. That is where the fighting, the infighting is. So probably 1-2 weeks after the presidential election and governorship election, you will see the real image of APC. They will go back to their parties that they were before they came together, because it's a marriage of convenience.
Your party has been accused of fueling the cashless situation in Nigeria. Is that true?
Cashless, what do they mean by that?
There's no Naira. The Naira seems to be scarce.
Who is accusing the party now? APC, right?
Your opposition party.
So let's assume it's APC because they are the ones talking. You know, imagine a party in government, the party that introduced the policy, the party that is enforcing the policy is pointing at the other person who has no control over the policy as the creator of the problem. When a man is suffering from what we call anthrophobia, they started with the condition of pantophobia. Fear of imminent defeat makes you behave somehow. Then their condition became worsened to anthrophobia. Anthrophobia is a fear of the societal backlash. So they are just doing catch and shoot. Imagine, let me give you this picture. If, like I said earlier, when we go to the election, you will see political parties. That's why you see the logo and the place where you thumbprint, party. Which party is in government? APC. Who is the president? The president who became the president because he won the highest lawful majority vote from the party that sponsored him. And they have been with him for 7 years when Nigerian people were suffering. They never visited the villa. They never went to Supreme Court. They never had a press conference. They never criticized him. We have seen how bandits chased people out of Kaduna. Even when the governor admitted they were going to take over Kaduna, they never said anything. 200 people died in Katsina. They never visited the president. You see the way killings are going in different parts of the country. These governors and this party, they never had any press conference. There was a fuel queue in this country for 6 months. They never had any press conference.
And it was rooted to your party.
No. That other time, 6 months. I'm not talking of the recent one. They never had a press conference.
So the recent one is rooted from your party.
No, I'm driving there. I'm driving to that point. All of this calamity that has been befalling Nigerian people, these people never said anything. But as the election is coming closer and they are seeing this situation, they met somewhere where their candidate said, it is because of me that these things are happening. It's because of me. He didn't even care about the Nigerian people. Meanwhile, Atiku, for the past 8 years, has raised issues and concern on all matters that affect the Nigerian people. Has always been on the side of the Nigerian people. That is the reason why he's running. Because he felt it is enough of this talk. Run and win the election so you can effect the change.
And if he doesn't win?
No. I'm driving to that point you raised. So now, the party in government is APC. The Minister of Petrol is the president. The Minister of State for Petrol is an APC person, right? The central bank governor almost ran for presidency under APC. And he's an appointee of the government of APC. all the bold players in the industry, whether from the petroleum industry or from financial industry, are all from their party. They are the ones that will call the shot and move the shot. Tell me which part of everything that is happening here that has connection with either the party or Atiku. At what point did Atiku have any opportunity to say anything that will affect policies in this government under them? He has even been persecuted by this government. His businesses were attacked because of that. But now they turn to the president. When they were fighting, they saw that the president was not ready to fight with them. They now look around. They say, okay, let us say it is Atiku. Because they expected that when this culmination and the climax of this crisis of that party begins to vent on Nigeria, they thought that Atiku at this point should open up his mouth and then start fighting the government like them. Atiku is not a rabble-rouser. It is a time of election. He's fixated on winning the election. Even then, Atiku told the president, you have to care, because he issued a statement about the sufferings of the masses. The masses are suffering because of this policy. You have to find a way of making money available to the people. He even at some point asked for an extension so that the people can meet up with that. But guess what? In the other party that created the problem, a governor in the northern Nigeria came out and said that they are going to fight everything possible to make sure that Asiwaju wins election. He was even looking at the Nigerian people.
How true?
He came out on Channels Television, on Arise, he was on BBC, he was everywhere. In fact, he even threw the entire northern elders under the bus for Asiwaju's ambition. So in other words, he was prepared to throw the entire north under the bus to achieve the ambition of the man who said it is his turn, Emileko. He assumed the role of the Sardona of Sokoto, the Sardona of Sokoto, Amadou Bello. He assumed that role to speak on behalf of the elders. And he said that eldership is determined by election. You look at the elders in the northern Nigeria. You look at how they kept the northern Nigeria and project the interests of the northern Nigeria. He said they didn't matter. We have never had in the history of the North, at any time somebody stood up to say, for the ambition of one man, he was going to throw the entire. But you know the good thing? That is working for us. Because it has raised the awareness, the alertness, and the consciousness of the people in the North as to what some people can do to achieve the ambition of somebody. Never about the people. When was the last time, TINUBU, you are in the media, you can say TINUBU had any press conference to fight for the masses? NSAS took place in Lagos. TINUBU ran out of Nigeria. He was never with the NSAS. There were killings. He denied it and ran away. If you are, and it is the youth from the NSAS that have now moved towards Peter Obi. They are not even looking at TINUBU. Where will he get the vote? At what time did TINUBU ever show? Does he have an industry where he recruits Nigerians? Does he have an educational institution where he's training Nigerians? Has he recruited Nigerians? Has he created opportunity for people? Everything is about himself. And now has spread the cancer across Nigeria that there are some people that will throw the entire North under the bus to achieve the ambition of one man. That is the reason why, if you look at the renaissance and the awareness in the North, they now say, wait a minute, including people in APC. What is happening? What is it about this ambition that somebody like this can even attempt to destroy the entire North for that? What is it about this person that in the Southwest, the Igbos are having terrible, persecution because of that? What is it about his own people? His own people from where he comes from. Some of whom walked under him before, but they have been isolated and said to be destroyed because there was a time they expressed opinion that did not match his wishes. Can you point at 5, 6 people that started with him that are with him now? Is vice president in his campaign? Where is Arebeshola in his campaign? These are people he raised. It's about dynasty. Emilokon, it is my turn. It is not the turn of the Nigerian people. So this, when you look at this, he doesn't stand a chance. At this time of consciousness with Nigerians, as a father, when I go home, I no longer think about me. I think about the future of my children. What education do I want to give my children? Do I hope that my children will find the Nigerian dream in this country? If yes, who has a better chance of preparing that future for them? None of these other candidates that stands come close to Atiku Abubakar. Atiku Abubakar has invested in Nigeria.
For the youth to say Peter Obi.
No, it is not the youth. Peter Obi never had a meeting with any youth wing organization in the country.
Then who is saying it?
It's a particular set of people who control media, social media and mainstream media, and some other persons who have been tasked to deliver the third-term agenda.
So why haven't you crushed them?
Because in this democracy, the best way to crush is on the election day. Because if you say you are youth, you are for him, that day will come, you will see another set of youth who are not with him. What is the population of youth in Nigeria? There is no state in the country where there are no youth, isn't it? So if you are a youth in a particular developed society or developed place and you say we are for Peter, how can you even say it is the youth? All the political parties have young people. So with the use of the word youth supporting Peter Obi, to me, is disingenuous to the other youth. Yes, it's good for you to identify the people. Look at his movement. Same set of people. Everywhere they go. He will go to as far as Nasarawa. You go to Katsina. Peter Obi's ESCO are from the southern Nigeria. Because he does not have the youth in this other part of the country who buy his mind. So I want to appeal to the media to look at this thing critically. When they say in a blanket word the youth are with him, to me is exaggeration. Because Peter Obi has no relationship with the youth. You know there is National Association of Nigerian Students. Have you seen any meeting that Peter Obi had with them? That is the student section.
Does he necessarily have to have a meeting with them?
Are they not the reflection of... So why is he going from one church to the other to meet the heads of the organization?
But the students are also there in the church.
Good. So in the Labour Party, for example, some of the say Labour Union are all with him. You don't know that the Labour Union members, some of them are even running for posts in other political parties. He just blanket. You claim certain people. I claim the youth in Nigeria. Where did you see the youth? I bet you look at the Peter Obi's campaign council and look at the membership of the campaign council. Look at other campaign council of other political party and show me if he has more youth than the others. And this idea of the youth, in 2019, there was Showore. Showore contributed to democracy. In 2019, did they look at him? Okay, if you say you don't want Showore, there is even more Galo. These people you called youth, why didn't they go for those ones? Then in 2023, you're going for somebody who has been a governor in Nigeria for 8 years, no evidence of governance, has moved his asset out of the shores of Nigeria. He is the only candidate now that Panama paper exposed. You're going for a candidate who has been an established... He has been in politics for over 20 years. And you say you want a new emerging politician. You're deceiving yourself. He has been in politics for over 20 years. In active politics. He governed in 8 years. You talk about, okay, we're looking for incorruptible. Okay, so among all of them, he's the only one Panama Papers pointed out. You say, okay, we're looking at somebody with philosophy. Anytime he say, this is their catchphrase. We are building an economy from consumption to production through agrarian revolution. Consumption, production, agrarian revolution. Consumption, production, Okay, let's take it. Let's start with the consumption. Who is a better advocate of consumption economy? Peter Obi. All his investment in Nigeria are imported. That is a consumption economy. Now, Atiku is a production economy. He has schools. He has businesses. He has people recruited in Nigeria. And he is producing opportunities for the Nigerian people. So you can see even from the first message of consumption, he's a failure. Okay, let's move to production. There is only one company in the whole of Nigeria that relates to production which is attributed to him when he created an alcohol company in Anambra, producing alcohol. Is that what you need in a society like that? But that is his only production. A man who his entire life depends on consumption-based philosophy can never overnight be a production expert. Then agrarian revolution. What agricultural policy has Peter Obi introduced in Anambra for the 8 years he has been there? Not a single one. So you want to become an expert overnight, you want to do agri. He will say the entire northern Nigeria is an opportunity to do agri. Was it not the Peter Obi that was chasing the northern people from Anambra? He said they have to have insignia to be identified. You see, the chips are down. Even some of his dishes around economic principles are not working. They ask him, what is your agenda for the security? He said, trust me, I have it. They say, can you give us a vision? He said, no, I don't want the enemies to know. Which part of the world have you ever had a candidate running for president say, I have security policy, but all you need is to trust me and vote me, then I will unleash them? The reason he does not have the policy is because he has consistently maintained that IPOB is not a proscribed organization, that they are not terrorists. When the law of the land that when he becomes a president, he will execute, proscribe them. He said they are not a terrorist organization. That's the reason he does not want to release his security policy. What his policy for unity? Churches. That's all. That's all he presents. Churches. And you know what? Do you know why he goes to churches? He has not developed the capacity to grow followership organically as a politician, where the people will look at you irrespective of religious inclination and any other consideration.
That's understandable.
How is it?
It is understandable because he has been with your party, to which all his efforts and capacities have helped to build your own party.
No.
So within the short period of time moving to Labour Party, he will have to start somewhere, and the church for him is a good place to start. Do you have a problem with that?
Good. And I like the way you asked the question. The church is the first place, meaning that he's going to build the foundation of his politics around identity. Is it not true? Because if you say the church, you have identified with a religion, and Nigeria is not a religious state. And you're going to enforce the provision of the Constitution of Nigeria. 0/100. From the first question flat. But the reason I am making the argument why he goes to churches, because when you go there, all you need is to convince the leader, and then the entire followers will support you. In other words, he is going to steal followership. Because if you come to my church, maybe I don't share the same economic ideology with you. I don't even believe you have the character and the integrity, but I respect my pastor. And whichever direction he say I should go, I will go. Then you come there and my pastor say we should all move for you. That means my own opinion, my own perception should be dropped because I respect my pastor. I should just go ahead and vote for you, which is the anti to the Constitution of Nigeria that provides freedom of thought, expression, and opinion. That's the difference between church and the state. In church, it is apostolic. A pastor can come and say, God said. You don't like what he said, but because God said, you follow him. In the nation, the Constitution says if your head is correct, when your leader say, hey, criticize it, or I shouldn't use the word criticize, but critique it, analyze it, and see why they must convince you. Different. So here, he has to convince. He has to project. He will answer questions. He does not have what it takes. So he moves to where he doesn't need those questions. All he needs is one person to say, move, and they will move. The foundation is flat out wrong. That kind of person can never, mark me, can never govern a country of multi-religious, heterogeneous, ideology, cultural, and different background. He will not. Foundation is zero. And that is where he's building now resentment in the other part of the country. God forbid that we have leaders that will buy the sentiment of the people on the basis of religious inclination.
Okay, then let me ask you one question still.
Yeah.
Your party, as well as other parties, signed a peace pact.
Right.
If the PDP doesn't win in these elections, what will you do as a party?
For my candidate, he has said it already. He was interviewed recently. What if you don't win the election? He said, if the election is conducted free and fair and I lose, I will accept it as my fate. He's the only candidate who said that. We go to Labour. Those people that want to bring him to power say, if he doesn't win, forget Nigeria. That means he doesn't believe in the peace pact. If you go to Asiwaju, his own spokesperson say if he doesn't win, Nigeria will go back to June 12. It is only Atiku who does not say something like that. That tells you the person with the character to lead at this time of Nigeria.
That's a good place to let it rest. Daniel Bwala, the spokesperson, PDP Presidential Campaign Council. And I wish you good luck. You have just about 2 weeks to see who braces the tape first.
Thank you. God willing, when next we'll have this interview, we'll have the interview while you celebrate me, our party, for winning the presidential election.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Good to have you.